What's up, Infected, and welcome to the Quarantine. Kickstart Your Week is back as of now, but there's going to be a few minor changes. So right out of the gates, rather than narrowing this down to 10, so those of you that are unfamiliar with the show, I used to narrow down Kickstarter every week to my 10 favorite Kickstarters that I thought looked really cool. But looking over the past, I'm actually going to start narrowing it down to my top 5 instead. But again, if you're unfamiliar with what this is, I'm going to narrow games, the past week's Kickstarters down to the 5 games that I thought looked really cool. And I'm going to kind of talk very briefly about why I thought they looked cool. They're in no particular order, and then I'm going to reward one, my favorite Kickstarter for the week, and we'll kind of go from there. So if you're not familiar with what this is and that all sounds cool, stick around. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm going to try to put this out at least once a week. Also, if you like this style of show, check out the Gamerati. I'll have a link down in the description as well. I do a weekly podcast with them, or I try to do a weekly podcast with them. Sometimes I can't make it, sometimes they can't make it, so on and so forth. But definitely check that out. It's just a podcast where we BS about, one game that we narrow down from the week that we thought looked really cool, and we talk about it. So definitely check that out. Alright, so we're going to start this off with a game called Agents of Mayhem, Pride of Babylon. Now, from what I understand, this is based on an Xbox game that I guess maybe hasn't been doing so hot, wasn't very good. But the board game, and again, that's just speculation, I haven't played it. But the board game does look really, really cool. It's got a really cool 3D terrain where you get these little 4 stick post things with a thing of cardboard on it, and then more, and then so you have these like stacking buildings that you put your people in, but then they can also be destroyed. So like I could blow out an entire floor and the top floor collapses on it, which I thought was an awesome, it's definitely gonna be a head turner, first and foremost. But it's a tactical minis game with apparently no downtime, which is huge plus. I'm not too big on games with downtime, but I can deal with it. But eliminate downtime, awesome. It also has these dual layered boards similar to like something like Scythe, which I like, where if you upgrade your characters, you're going to take a card and slide it under, so now it shows your new ability, and it allows for like campaign play. So when I buy this upgrade, it's permanently on my character, and you don't have to worry about it being shuffled in. It's in the actual player board, which I thought looked neat. Problem with that, though, I can see is either sleeving, it may not fit anymore, or it's going to damage the cards after a while, but that remains to be seen. The last cool thing I thought was neat about this is, because I'm a huge fan of minis in a game anyways, even though I want to get around to painting them, but I never will, is you could play it in a procedurally generated like campaign or procedurally generated map using an app that comes with it, which I thought was really cool. So effectively it could be unlimited replayability, which could be awesome. Next up is Ziya, Missions and Powers. So I love Ziya. Probably my number 1 game. It's actually just off screen right over here. I absolutely love Ziya. I own everything of Ziya, and I will continue to buy everything of Ziya. The game is phenomenal. It is very roll and move, but there's ways to mitigate that with the newest expansion. The newest expansion fixes all the gripes that I had. Really, the only downfall that Ziya has is it does have a lot of downtime. But the game itself is phenomenal. It's a space sandbox if you haven't played it. With this Kickstarter, you're going to have the opportunity to be able to back and just get everything if you're interested in the game in any way, or if you already have Ziya, you're probably going to get this anyways. It just adds more missions. All of the ships it's going to add a new power for all the ships. So now when you buy a ship, you get to select one of 2 different powers. So, you're not always going to buy, I think the Puddle Jumper, because you want this one ability. Maybe there'll be another ship that also kind of has that similar ability. So now you have a little bit more decision making, which is cool. And then the missions, from what I understand, are going to be, all of the new missions are just interactive missions that allow you to interact with other players. Because the interaction in Ziya usually comes from, I'm a pirate, I'm going to pirate you, basically. But, and once in a while you get like assassination missions or something like that. Or if somebody's winning, maybe you'll do stuff to screw them over or tank the market or whatever. But, adding more missions, more variety to Ziya is always welcome. I could talk about this all day. if you already like Ziya, you're probably already a backer or you're getting it anyways. If you don't like Ziya, this probably isn't going to fix the problems you have with it. Alright, next up on the agenda here is Loruna Age of Kingdoms. Now, it's no secret, I'm a big fan of 4X games in general. I like a long, invested game where I've put in a lot, so that way trying to get that win means more, and it's my time that's on the line. But it's not super devastating if I lose, no big deal. But I like a big, involved, invested game. And what this is a high fantasy 4X game. And from what I can tell is the gods are basically just going to wipe everybody out. But you're trying to gain only one, they'll only spare one of the races. So you're trying to gain enough favor with the gods so they'll save your empire and nobody else's. So the way it winds up working is you have like your hero, and you're going to be going around the land trying to gain the favor for the gods by completing quests, and I guess finding artifacts and equipping your people and stuff like that. But you're also marshaling armies to fight each other as well, because as I'm pushing in on you, it's harder for you to get that favor from the gods, which I thought looked really, really cool. There's looks like a lot going on the board, which could be both a detriment and I can't think of the other word, but I guess a positive. It could go either way. I personally think it's cool when there's a lot of things to keep up with because, again, I like invested games and I like being immersed in my games. From what I can understand, there's multiple ways to win. Again, quest, conquest, whatever. There's lots of different ways to win, and it's just a high fantasy 4X game, which I thought looked really cool. And next up is Co2 Second Chance. Now, I've almost bought the original CO2 several times. CO2 is a game where you are an electric company, basically a power company, and you're trying to generate enough power to feed demand, but you're also trying to keep the environment in mind. So you could produce a ton of power, but it's also very polluting and is destroying the environment and spilling greenhouse gases out. But then you wind up getting hit with penalties because I guess whatever is in play to kind of prevent you from doing that. Or do you use the more inefficient green energy but try to meet those power demands but stay within your the requirements that you need so you don't get penalized. And I love that concept, especially with the current, regardless of your political stance, especially with the current environment that we're in. It's a really cool concept, and I love that. But this one, if you're not familiar with what it is, it's a very Euro-y style game from what I understand. But this one, if you already own the game, you may still be interested in this because it's got a co-op variant, which makes the game a little bit easier to learn, because it's one thing I did hear is it's a lot of the time very difficult to teach new players. So with the co-op variant, kind of eliminates that. You are working together and you can teach the rules that way. But then on top of that, it's got a double-sided board, so you can flip the board over and it changes the game. So if you already own this or own the game, you may want to get that. I don't think there's any way for you to be able to just buy the upgraded stuff. It also has 3D power plants, which is really cool. It's just a bunch of really cool components, which I like. But anyways, I'm probably going to wind up backing this one as well, because I've been wanting to buy this game for quite a while. Alright, and last up, I was torn between this and another game, but I decided to go with Warpgate because I'm a big sci-fi nerd. Warpgate is, at first I thought it was going to be a 4X game that plays in an hour, but it's not. It looks like it is purely a dudes on the map area control game in space, and I love that. I'm a big, of course I'm a big sci-fi fan anyways, but I have enough 4X games, and if this game plays within the 90-minute time frame that it says at 4 players, then awesome. But the way this one works is it has you're again, area control. You're trying to spread out. There's dynamic objectives, so it forces you to, you're not able to turtle because the objectives are constantly changing for you to get these points. So turtling is just going to hurt you, I'm guessing, unless you get super lucky. But the thing I like about the game the most is it has diceless combat. I'm not a big fan of dice in games. I can deal with it if there's mitigation for that dice. You can kind of curb how it's going to be. Again, Ziya with the expansion fixes that, where you get you can add 2 to your dice roll, so it allows you a little more flexibility, stuff like that. So this one, there's no dice in combat. You basically just draw 2 cards, and when you draw these 2 cards, you have to choose which one of the 2 you want. So the card will either have like a big fleet multiplier, but not a very good ability, so it ensures you're going to win the combat, or it's going to have an ability that's going to affect the combat, but probably a low number. So you may win the combat, but I've screwed your fleet to where, I don't know, maybe they can only move 1 space from here on out, or something. So you wind up, I like stuff like that, where it's more, you're given a choice between 2 usually crappy decisions. Which one of these 2 do you want? Or which one do you think is going to help you more? And I like that much better than just throwing dice. But I know, to each their own. Then on top of that, it's a hand management card-based game. So you have a board that's got 4 spots, and apparently the first card you play is only going to multiply whatever the effect is by 1, and then 2 times 2 times 3 times 4. So you wind up having to decide, you play these cards, and each card has 2 options on it, and then it's going to be multiplied by what card number it is, which I thought was really cool. Like a really, really cool concept, because now you have a lot more decisions. Okay, well, I really need to do this before this happens, but it's going to be more effective if I wait. And I thought that looked phenomenal. And that is my 5 Kickstarters for this week. So I hope you enjoyed this. My Kickstarter for this week, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but my Kickstarter of the week is probably CO2, because as I mentioned a second ago, this is the one that I'm, if money permitting, I'm probably gonna wind up backing, because I've wanted to buy it for a while anyways. I love the concept and I like the theme, and now is probably the best time, better time than any, to go ahead and grab it. But it was a very hard decision because all of these games look phenomenal. If you're new to this channel, definitely hit that subscribe button down in the description. Leave a comment. I read all my comments. Hopefully, school seems to be settling down just a bit. I have a lot of things coming down the line. Videos, reviews, stuff like that coming down the line here shortly. So keep an eye out for that. And as always, I'll see you guys next time in the quarantine.